What if I told you that 7 popular SUVs you see on the road every day will be completely banned from sale in certain markets starting in 2026? What if the SUV sitting in your driveway right now could become impossible to buy new in just months? And what if government regulations, emissions standards, and safety requirements are about to make some of the most popular vehicles in America illegal to sell? Most people have no idea that sweeping changes to automotive regulations are coming in 2026, changes so dramatic that several mainstream SUVs will be pulled from showrooms entirely. These aren't obscure models or low-volume specialty vehicles, these are SUVs that millions of people drive, SUVs that have been bestsellers for years, and SUVs that manufacturers are being forced to discontinue because they simply cannot meet the new standards. Some will be banned because they're too polluting, others because they fail new safety requirements, and some because they're too dangerous to pedestrians under new crash regulations. The automotive landscape is about to change dramatically, and if you're in the market for one of these SUVs, you need to act fast before they disappear forever. Today, I'm counting down from number 7 to number 1, revealing the SUVs that will be banned in 2026, why they're being pulled from the market, and what this means for current owners and prospective buyers. Let's dive in! 7. Infiniti QX80. Starting our countdown at number 7 is the Infiniti QX80, Nissan's luxury full-size SUV that faces a ban due to its aging platform, inefficient powertrain, and inability to meet 2026 emissions and safety standards. The QX80 is powered by a 5.6-liter V8 engine producing 400 horsepower, the same engine used in the Nissan Armada. This massive V8 achieves just 14 miles per gallon in the city and 20 miles per gallon on the highway. These numbers are catastrophic for 2026 CAFE compliance and state-level emissions regulations that are becoming dramatically stricter. The QX80's problems are compounded by its age. The basic platform dates back to 2004, making it one of the oldest vehicle architectures still in production. This age means the vehicle lacks modern safety features and structural improvements that are becoming mandatory in 2026. Retrofitting new safety technology onto such an old platform is technically challenging and economically unviable for a brand struggling like Infiniti. California's regulations have effectively killed the QX80 in that crucial market. The combination of poor fuel economy, high emissions, and Infiniti's struggling compliance position makes continuing to sell the QX80 in California impossible. Starting in 2026. Since California represents a huge portion of luxury vehicle sales in the United States, losing that market effectively kills the model nationwide. New pedestrian safety standards also doom the QX80. The high hood, aggressive grille design, and rigid front-end structure create significant pedestrian injury risks in crashes. Redesigning the front end to meet new crash test standards would require extensive changes that Nissan has determined are not economically justified given the vehicle's limited remaining lifespan and declining sales. Infiniti has announced that a replacement for the QX80 is in development but has not committed to a specific launch date. The replacement is expected to use electrified powertrains and a modern platform shared with other Nissan products. For the handful of buyers still interested in the QX80, 2025 represents the final opportunity to purchase one new in most markets. 6. Ford Expedition EcoBoost V6. At number 6 is Ford's full-size Expedition SUV, specifically the versions powered by the 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6 engine. While Ford's twin-turbocharged V6 strategy has been successful in many ways, the Expedition's size and weight create emissions and efficiency challenges that will make it unavailable in certain markets starting in 2026. The Expedition achieves 17 miles per gallon in the city and 23 miles per gallon on the highway, which are decent numbers for a vehicle this large but still inadequate for 2026 California standards and similar regulations in other states. The EcoBoost engine's reliance on turbocharging creates additional emissions challenges, particularly regarding particulate matter that newer regulations target aggressively. California's regulations create the most immediate challenges for the Expedition. The state's Advanced Clean Cars 2 program requires increasing percentages of zero-emission vehicle sales, and large SUVs like the Expedition that produce significant emissions make it harder for manufacturers to meet these targets. Ford has indicated that maintaining the Expedition in California and the 16 states following California's standards would require powertrain changes that are not currently planned for the 2026 model year. Pedestrian safety regulations also create problems for the Expedition. The high hood height, flat front end, and large grille opening create significant injury risks in pedestrian crashes. New regulations requiring softer structures and more forgiving front-end designs would require extensive redesign that Ford has determined is not cost-effective for the current platform generation. Ford's solution is the upcoming electric Expedition, expected to launch in 2027 or 2028. This electric version will meet all regulations while offering even more power, torque, and interior space than the current model. However, the gap between the discontinuation of the current Expedition in regulated markets and the arrival of the electric version leaves buyers without options for a period. The Expedition will likely remain available in states that haven't adopted California's regulations, creating a divided market situation where buyers in certain states will still have access while others won't. For current Expedition owners in banned markets, values should remain strong as the supply of large three-row SUVs shrinks. 5. Toyota Land Cruiser 300 Series. At number 5 is Toyota's legendary Land Cruiser 300 Series, which faces bans in various markets not because of fundamental flaws, but because of emissions regulations that even Toyota's legendary engineering cannot overcome while maintaining the vehicle's traditional character. The Land Cruiser 300 Series uses a twin-turbocharged V6 engine producing 409 horsepower. While more efficient than the previous V8-powered Land Cruiser, the 300 Series still achieves only 17 miles per gallon combined. For a vehicle weighing over 5,800 pounds with the aerodynamics of a building, these numbers create serious challenges for 2026 compliance in regulated markets. Toyota has already discontinued the Land Cruiser in the United States market, though not initially due to regulations. The company determined that sales volumes didn't justify the cost of certifying the vehicle for U.S. emissions and safety standards. However, in markets where the Land Cruiser remains available, 2026 regulations are forcing similar discontinuations. European Union regulations have effectively banned the Land Cruiser from most EU markets. The Euro 7 standards that take effect in 2026 set limits on emissions that the Land Cruiser's engine cannot meet without extensive modifications. Toyota has determined that the cost of redesigning the powertrain for the relatively small European Land Cruiser market is not economically viable. Australia, traditionally a strong market for the Land Cruiser, is implementing strict emission standards aligned with European regulations. While the exact timeline varies by Australian state, federal standards coming in 2026 will make the current Land Cruiser difficult or impossible to sell without significant modifications or hybrid technology. The Land Cruiser's ban in certain markets is particularly controversial because the vehicle is designed for extreme durability and longevity. Many Land Cruisers remain in service for decades, which arguably makes them more environmentally friendly over their life cycle than vehicles that require replacement every few years. However, regulations focus on tailpipe emissions rather than total life cycle environmental impact, which disadvantages durable vehicles with less efficient engines. Toyota's solution for regulated markets is expected to be a heavily revised Land Cruiser with hybrid technology or potentially a fully electric version. However, such a vehicle would be fundamentally different from the current model, lacking the mechanical simplicity and proven durability that make the Land Cruiser legendary among enthusiasts and professionals who depend on it. 4. Chevrolet Tahoe and GMC Yukon, base V8 models. At number 4, we have two closely related GM full-size SUVs, the Chevrolet Tahoe and GMC Yukon in their base V8 configurations. These aren't being completely banned everywhere, but the entry-level versions with naturally aspirated V8 engines cannot meet 2026 standards in key markets. The base Tahoe and Yukon use GM's 5.3-liter V8 engine, producing 355 horsepower. While this engine has been improved over the years with cylinder deactivation and other efficiency technologies, it still only achieves 16 miles per gallon in the city and 20 miles per gallon on the highway. These numbers are inadequate for 2026 regulations in California and other states following similar standards. GM's strategy has been to push buyers toward the 3.0-liter Duramax diesel option, which offers significantly better fuel economy at 21 city and 27 highway miles per gallon. However, diesel engines face their own regulatory challenges, particularly in California and other states that have implemented stringent particulate matter and nitrogen oxide standards that make diesel certification increasingly difficult. California's Advanced Clean Cars 2 program creates the most immediate problems for the base V8 Tahoe and Yukon. The state's requirements for dramatically increased zero-emission vehicle sales means that vehicles with poor fuel economy like the base V8 SUVs count heavily against manufacturers' compliance calculations. GM has indicated that the base V8 will be discontinued in California and similar markets starting in 2026. New pedestrian safety standards also create problems for the Tahoe and Yukon. The high hood height and aggressive front-end design, while giving the SUVs their commanding presence, create significant pedestrian injury risks in crashes. New regulations require softer front-end structures and lower hood heights that would require extensive redesign of the entire front end. GM's solution is pushing buyers toward the upcoming electric versions of the Tahoe and Yukon, expected to arrive by 2027 or 2028. These electric models will meet all regulations while offering even more power and torque than the V8 versions. But in the interim period, buyers in regulated markets won't have access to the traditional V8 models they prefer. The base V8 models will continue to be available in states that haven't adopted California's regulations, creating a split market situation. For enthusiasts who want a traditional V8 full-size SUV, 2025 represents the last opportunity to buy new in many markets. 3. Nissan Armada. Coming in at number 3 is the full-size Nissan Armada, a traditional body-on-frame SUV with a big V8 engine that cannot meet 2026 emissions and fuel economy standards in its current form across multiple markets. The Armada is powered by a 5.6-liter V8 engine that produces 400 horsepower, which sounds impressive until you look at the fuel economy numbers. The EPA rates the Armada at just 14 miles per gallon in the city and 19 miles per gallon on the highway. For a vehicle that weighs over 5,700 pounds, these numbers are catastrophic for meeting 2026 standards. Nissan's corporate average fuel economy numbers are already problematic, and the Armada is a major contributor to the company's struggles with CAFE compliance. Every Armada sold counts against Nissan's fleet average, and as standards tighten in 2026, the vehicle becomes an increasingly expensive liability through CAFE penalties and credits Nissan must purchase from competitors. California's Advanced Clean Cars 2 program creates additional problems for the Armada. The regulations require increasing percentages of zero-emission vehicle sales, and large SUVs like the Armada that produce significant emissions make it harder for Nissan to meet these targets. The company has determined that discontinuing the Armada in California and states following California's lead is necessary for overall compliance. New safety regulations also impact the Armada's viability. The vehicle's age, based on a platform dating back to 2004, means it lacks modern safety features that are becoming mandatory. While Nissan has added driver assistance systems over the years, the fundamental structure cannot meet new crash test standards without extensive and expensive redesign. European and Asian markets have already rejected the Armada due to emission standards and taxation structures that heavily penalize large displacement engines. The vehicle has been effectively banned from sale in the EU since 2022, and similar restrictions are coming to North America in 2026 for regulated markets. The Armada's replacement is expected to be either a heavily redesigned version with a more efficient powertrain or possibly an electric model sharing technology with Nissan's expanding EV lineup. But for 2026, the current generation Armada will be unavailable in most regulated markets. Nissan has already announced that 2025 will be the final model year for the current Armada in key markets. For current Armada owners, the ban actually creates opportunity, as used values should remain strong for well-maintained examples due to limited supply. 2. Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Gasoline V6. At number 2 is an American icon that's facing a ban in certain configurations: the Jeep Wrangler Unlimited with the standard gasoline V6 engine. This isn't about banning the Wrangler nameplate entirely, but the traditional gasoline-powered version cannot meet 2026 regulations in many key markets. The Wrangler's problems stem from its fundamental design philosophy. The body-on-frame construction, solid axles, removable doors and roof, and non-aerodynamic shape that make it an incredible off-road vehicle also make it terrible for fuel economy and emissions. The standard 3.6-liter V6 Wrangler Unlimited achieves just 19 miles per gallon in combined driving, which is woefully inadequate for 2026 standards. European Union regulations have already effectively banned the gasoline Wrangler from most European markets. The combination of poor fuel economy and relatively high emissions means the vehicle cannot meet Euro 7 standards without extensive modifications that would fundamentally change its character and capability. Jeep tried to keep the Wrangler viable in Europe with mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions, but sales have plummeted due to high prices. In the United States, California's regulations create similar problems. The Air Resources Board's 2026 standards require automakers to sell an increasing percentage of zero-emission vehicles, and vehicles with poor emissions profiles like the gasoline Wrangler count against manufacturers' compliance calculations. Stellantis has determined that continuing to sell the gasoline Wrangler in California and the 16 other states that have adopted California's standards is not economically viable. The Wrangler's off-road capability also creates safety concerns under new regulations. The high ground clearance, short overhangs, and aggressive approach angles that make it excellent off-road create a vehicle profile that's particularly dangerous to pedestrians and cyclists in urban environments. New pedestrian crash test standards require front-end designs that reduce injury severity, and the Wrangler's flat vertical grille and exposed frame rails fail these tests. Jeep's solution is to push buyers toward the 4xe plug-in hybrid version, which offers 21 miles of electric-only range and dramatically better combined fuel economy. The 4xe meets all current and proposed 2026 regulations, but it costs significantly more than the standard gasoline model. For many traditional Wrangler buyers who want simplicity and maximum off-road capability, the plug-in hybrid is not an acceptable alternative. Jeep is also developing a fully electric Wrangler expected to arrive by 2028, but that leaves a gap for 2026 and 2027 where the traditional gasoline Wrangler will be unavailable in many markets. Current owners of gasoline Wranglers should expect strong resale values as demand from enthusiasts who want the real Wrangler experience remains high. 1. Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat. And now, taking the #1 spot as the most dramatic ban is the most powerful three-row SUV ever built, the Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat. A 710 horsepower monster that's being banned not because of emissions alone, but because it represents everything regulators are trying to eliminate from modern vehicles. The Durango SRT Hellcat is powered by a supercharged 6.2-liter V8 that produces 710 horsepower and 645 lb-ft of torque. This engine can propel a three-row family SUV from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3.5 seconds, which is absolutely insane for a vehicle designed to carry 7 passengers. But this performance comes at a massive cost to the environment and fuel economy. The EPA rates the Durango SRT Hellcat at just 13 miles per gallon in the city and 19 miles per gallon on the highway. In an era where automakers are scrambling to meet corporate average fuel economy standards that require fleet-wide averages approaching 40 miles per gallon, the Durango SRT Hellcat is an anchor dragging Stellantis down and costing the company millions in CAFE penalties. European markets have already banned this vehicle due to emissions regulations that the supercharged V8 cannot possibly meet. The EU's Euro 7 emissions standards, which take effect in 2026, set limits on nitrogen oxides and particulate matter that the Hellcat engine simply cannot achieve even with extensive modifications and advanced emissions control systems. In the United States, California's Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulations, which several other states have adopted, effectively ban the sale of new gasoline vehicles with emissions profiles like the Durango SRT Hellcat starting in 2026. While the federal government hasn't implemented a nationwide ban, the patchwork of state regulations makes it economically unfeasible for manufacturers to continue selling vehicles that are illegal in major markets representing millions of potential customers. New pedestrian safety regulations also doom the Durango SRT Hellcat. The aggressive front-end design with minimal crumple zones and a rigid structure optimized for performance rather than pedestrian protection fails new crash test standards designed to reduce pedestrian fatalities. Redesigning the front end would require such extensive changes that Dodge has decided discontinuation is the only viable option. Dodge has already announced that 2023 was the final model year for the Durango SRT Hellcat, making it a collector's item before it even left showrooms. Current owners are sitting on vehicles that will likely appreciate in value as the last of the truly outrageous performance SUVs that could never be built under modern regulations. The ban on the Durango SRT Hellcat represents a broader shift away from high-performance gasoline engines toward electrification. While electric SUVs can match or exceed the Hellcat's performance, they do so with zero emissions, making them compliant with even the strictest regulations. The era of supercharged V8 family SUVs is over, and the Durango SRT Hellcat is the most dramatic and spectacular casualty, earning it the #1 spot on our list. There you have it, 7 SUVs counted down from number 7 to number 1 that will be banned from sale in 2026 due to emissions regulations, safety standards, and changing market requirements. From the aging Infiniti QX80 to the spectacular Dodge Durango SRT Hellcat, these vehicles represent the end of an automotive era. The 2026 bans aren't about eliminating SUVs entirely, but about forcing the transition to cleaner, more efficient vehicles. Manufacturers are responding with electric SUVs, plug-in hybrids, and advanced gasoline engines that meet modern standards. The SUVs replacing these banned models will offer more power, better technology, and zero emissions while maintaining the utility that makes SUVs popular. For prospective buyers, 2025 represents the last chance to purchase these vehicles new. If you've been considering one of these SUVs, act quickly before inventory disappears. For current owners, these bans may actually increase your vehicle's value as they become collectible remnants of the gasoline era. The automotive landscape is changing rapidly, and 2026 represents a watershed moment. The SUVs being banned aren't bad vehicles, they're simply incompatible with where the industry and regulations are heading. The future is electric, efficient, and regulated, and these 7 SUVs are the casualties of that inevitable transition.